Hey guys, welcome back to Zito Like Frito. My name is Frankie Zito, and today I want to do something a little bit different on the heels of the All Stars 10 finale. I wanted to do more of like a what if video and see how much different the competition would look like if instead of a top two format, we had a more traditional like bottom two lip sync for your life format. I'm going to be basing things off of how I thought the queens did, which sometimes may differ a little bit from what the judges thought, but whatever, we're just going to get into it. Bracket 1, Episode 1. Now, of course, this episode had really heavy hitters in Aja, Bosco, Irene, Phoenix, Olivia, and Deja. And in the first episode, we really saw some queens shine a lot more than others. The main challenge for the first episode was a rock song called Winner Winner Chicken Dinner, and the runway category was Tits and Slits. I think without a doubt, Aja was one of the top queens this week with her really incredible lyrics and stage presence during the challenge and a decent enough Jinx runway. And for me, she was followed closely by Irene, who really drew me in during the challenge, and she had a pretty grand green alien look. On the flip side, I think Deja and Phoenix were the obvious weakest in both the performance challenges and had some of the weaker looks in my opinion as well. So I'm going to give them the bottom two of episode 1, and they're going to lip sync to that I Spice song. And I think just given the genre of the song, I think Deja has the upper hand here and is going to end up sending Phoenix home on episode 1. Episode 2 of Bracket 1 is the Murder on the Dance Floor Improv Challenge. And again, taking both the main challenge and the runway into consideration here, I would say the top queens this week are probably Irene and Bosco, who both had really, really good runways and both did really good job in the challenge. Specifically Irene, again, who had me really believe her as an actress during this challenge. It was so good. I think Aja also did really well in the challenge and had an interesting enough sun and moon runway. So I think the bottom two of the week would end up being Deja and Olivia. Even though Deja did a good job in the challenge, I still think Aja did better, and Deja's runway was just not for me at all. And I think Olivia was the weakest in this challenge, and while her runway was really beautiful, I kind of hated that I could see it coming before she even turned around. So for me, Olivia and Deja will lip sync this episode to Murder on the Dance Floor by Sophie Ellis-Bextor. This one's kind of tough. I think Olivia's lip sync look is way more fitting for the song, but I think overall the song is more like Deja's vibe, so I'm going to have to give this one to Deja, and I'm going to say she wins and sends Olivia home on episode 2. For episode 3, we've got the makeover with the basketball players. We had Deja and Sophie Rochus, Irene and Estelle the Alien, Bosco and the Goddess, and Aja and Tiva left in our sort of hypothetical bracket. And right off the bat, I'm going to put Deja in the bottom for this makeover. These outfits were just a little bit bland for me compared to all the others, even if their mugs were really, really stamped. It didn't hold up against the others. I also think Bosco and the Goddess and Irene and Estelle both ate again this week with their makeovers. And even though I think Aja's look was cute, the wings were a little bit janky, so I think Aja would be in the bottom with Deja, and they would lip sync to Pocketbook by Jennifer Hudson, and I think Aja would honestly wipe the floor with Deja, no contest. Deja's going home at this point. So ultimately, Bracket 1 has the same outcome, even with the bottom two formats, which I think makes sense. I think at the time that this was airing, we as the fandom were really excited for this season, and the judging felt pretty fair across the board, and the queens moving on to the semifinals felt correct. But we're going to see how that holds up as we move on to Bracket 2. With Bracket 2, we had Georges, Carrie, Lydia, Mistress, Nicole Paige Brooks, and Tina. And Episode 4 is the 8-Ball Eleganza. I think without a doubt, Tina is still in the top here, and honestly, I think Georges and Mistress both did a really good job in their looks as well, so I'm going to put them second and third place in this challenge for me. Nicole Paige Brooks is obviously in the bottom this week for her look, and between Lydia and Carrie for who should be with her in the bottom, I mean, I liked both of their looks, but I do think Lydia's look was a little bit more interesting to both me and the judges, so I think in the bottom we're actually going to have Carrie Colby, even though I love her look. So that means Carrie and NPB are going to lip sync to Love Sensation, and I don't know. This is tough. I think the song is more up Nicole's alley, but Carrie is a really good performer, and I think if it were a regular bottom two elimination, producers probably would not let Carrie go home here, especially given how horrendous Nicole's look was here. So I think at this point, Carrie is gonna send home Nicole Page Brooks in episode 4 of bracket 2. Now, episode 5, I think, is my favorite episode of the whole season, and it's the Rap and Roast Challenge with the Little Shop of Horrors runway. This one is kind of tough to judge because for the challenge, I would actually rank them as Mistress as the best, followed by Georges, Carrie, Lydia, and then Tina. And I'm skipping Nicole because she's eliminated in our hypothetical season. And it's kind of mildly controversial that I'd put Carrie above Lydia and Tina, but it's been, what, like 6 weeks now, and Carrie's verse, even though it's not really roasting anyone in the traditional sense, has been stuck in my head this entire time, and her flow was like by far the best. And I think for the runways, Georges had the best look for sure, followed by Tina, Carrie, Lydia, and then I'd probably put Mistress in last for runway. So again, it's kind of hard. Some people did really good in the runway, but not as good in the challenge, and vice versa. So taking both into consideration, I think Lydia and Tina would be in the bottom. Not because they were bad by any means, but I thought the other girls just had a better like combination of their runway and performance, so it is what it is. They're gonna lip sync to Hot to Go by Chapel Roan, and this song is definitely more of Lydia's generation, for sure, so I think that she would win and send Tina home. Episode 6 has the main challenge, Star Booty the Rebooty, and a runway category of Wild Wild West. I think in the challenge I would rank them Georges, and then Carrie, then Lydia, then Mistress. For me, Mistress's hair costume was actually as distracting. I agree with Michelle's critique here. Lydia, for me, also seemed a little bit unsure of herself at times and just looked like she was thinking really hard of the next step in the choreo or next move. Meanwhile, if we look at someone like Georges, she was just having fun the entire time. She's like really learned to emote, I think, with her face when she's performing, which is so much fun to watch. And she was just enjoying herself, and that really, really shone through on the edit. On the runway, though, I would actually say Lydia had the best look. It was like that campy, cartoony fashion, and it was just really satisfying. I also really liked Carrie's clear and white chaps look. Meanwhile, Georges's look was clean, but nothing like jaw-dropping. That Western, like, saloon girl look was okay. And Mistress's look was just plain bad. So I think Mistress would definitely be in the bottom this episode, and choosing a second bottom queen between Georges, Carrie, and Lydia is going to be pretty tough. But I think I'm going to take into consideration that Georges and Lydia were actually the top 2 in the original episode, so I'm going to say that Carrie and Mistress would be lip syncing for their lives in our hypothetical season to Texas Hold'em by Beyonce. Now, they're both Texas gals, but something deep in me says that Carrie would embody the song better than Mistress here and would send Mistress home, which would be a fun contrast to the original storyline of the episode where Mistress ends up keeping her top 3 spot by not giving Carrie that MVQ point. So in this bracket, we have Georges, Lydia, and Carrie advancing to the semifinals, and Mistress, without the ability to scheme her way into more MVQ points, actually doesn't make it to the semifinals, which is our first major deviation from the original season. But as we move on to bracket 3, it probably won't be our last. Bracket 3 kicks off with episode 7, which was the Good Witch, Wicked Witch Design Challenge / Comedy Challenge. And this one's gonna be tough because some queens really excelled in their looks that they designed, while others more so in their like storytelling and their comedy. So if I had to rank the queens in terms of their looks, and only their looks, I'd say Denali is on top, followed by Alyssa, and then Acid, then Daya, then actually Cynthia I would put, and then last I would put Ginger. But if I ranked them on their comedy and their storytelling, then I'd probably say, personally, Denali and Acid had my favorite story, followed by Ginger and Daya, and then Cynthia and Alyssa. So I think based on this, Cynthia would be in the bottom, and I'd actually put Ginger in the bottom too. I thought her look was the weakest of the night, like by far. So this is kind of funny to see because Ginger, again, would be lip syncing for being in the bottom this time versus lip syncing for being in the top on the original episode. So her and Cynthia are going to lip sync to Defying Gravity, and I think Ginger takes it. No sweat, and she's going to send Cynthia home here. Episode 8 is Stagecoach, and we have two groups. First group is the Whiskey Chicks, comprised of Denali, Alyssa, and Acid, and the Mudflaps, which has Cynthia, Daya, and Ginger. And even though Cynthia was eliminated last week in our hypothetical season, I just want to take a moment to say that I thought she actually killed this challenge originally, so props to Cynthia. Ginger did really good, Daya did okay. Meanwhile, on the other team, Denali was clearly the best, followed by Acid and then probably Alyssa. But on the runways, if I had to rank their looks, I'd say Denali's was the best, followed by Alyssa, Daya, Acid, and then Ginger again in last place with the weakest look for me. Given that though, I don't think Ginger would be in the bottom two even though she had the worst runway. I think she did really good in the challenge, and I think that's going to save her this week. So the bottom two is kind of a toss-up between Alyssa, Daya, and Acid. And I think of these three, Acid had my preferred runway and performance compared to both Alyssa and Daya. So I'm going to say that those two queens are the bottom two of the week, lip-syncing to Miley's See You Again. And again, this song is 100% up Daya's alley, and I think she's gonna absolutely smoke Alyssa in this lip sync and send her home. Episode 9 is the Golden Bitchler, and it's an improv challenge that dragged on for far too long, in my opinion. In the challenge, I think honestly, Acid was my favorite. Her character was really fun and unexpected for her. Ginger obviously did really good, of course she would, and while Denali got the critiques that she missed the mark a little bit on channeling that emotional support animal vibe versus just the nervous character, I think she at least stayed in character the whole time, which was admirable. On the other hand, I thought Daya was the weakest, honestly, because her character was basically playing herself. On the runway, I thought Ginger's look was actually the strongest of the night, with that Elizabethan look was great. Denali's look was really good too, but personally, I wish it were a floor-length gown instead of a mini dress. I think that would have had a bigger impact on me. Daya's look was really good too. Acid's look was alright, but I really didn't like sort of the pink hooker boots that she put with it. Overall, I think the bottom two of the week would be Daya and Denali here, just given their performances in the challenge. And this is another instance of someone lip syncing for being in the bottom when they originally did it for being in the top. This time it's Daya, and they're gonna lip sync to Mama Used to Say. And as good as Daya did in the original lip sync, I don't know, I'm a Denali stan, and I think she would actually pull through and send Daya home. So as we close out bracket 3, we actually have Ginger, Denali, and Acid making it through. So this bracket obviously had the most shakeups versus the original season, which honestly isn't surprising to me given how much production meddling we all saw on the original season. Moving on to episode 10, this is the merge to the semifinals and also Snatch Game. And reminder, the queens left in our hypothetical season are a little bit different, right? So we have Denali, Acid, and Carrie still in the competition over Daya, Cynthia, and Mistress. In terms of Snatch Game though, I don't think Carrie or Acid would do particularly well, especially given that Acid was in the bottom for Snatch Game on season 8. I do think Denali would do okay though, given her portrayal of JVN on season 13. So I think for the bottom, we're just gonna go ahead and put Carrie and Acid, as everyone else who actually participated in the original season, I think, did an okay job in either Snatch Game or the runway or both, to be honest. All the runways, except for Ginger's first look pre-reveal, were all super strong in my opinion. So our bottom two are going to be Carrie and Acid, lip-syncing to the acapella mix of Who's Zoomin' Who. And honestly, I think if Carrie channeled that southern charm, I think she could win against Acid. So in this hypothetical, we're going to see Acid sashay away on episode 10. Now, episode 11 is the last episode before the finale, and we have Denali and Carrie still in the competition over Daya and Mistress. In the talent show, I personally thought Aja's performance was the best of the night, hands down. It was so dynamic and so energetic. I think she was closely followed by Bosco and then Ginger, And actually, Irene, I enjoyed. Meanwhile, Georges, in my eyes, like couldn't match up to her like All Stars 9 performance where she like got whipped around on on stage. And Lydia's, while it was like super creative and unique, was again, it was kind of bogged down by like those reveal mishaps that we kept seeing. I do think Denali could hold her own in a talent show, place somewhere in the middle of the pack probably, but I don't know if Carrie necessarily could. I think on the runway, all of the queens really like slayed the foiled runway, and I think both Denali and Carrie would do so as well. If the runways are a wash, then I think based on talent show, we'd probably see Carrie and Lydia in the bottom, lip syncing to Guess by Charlie XCX. And to be honest, I think Lydia actually did really good in this lip sync on the original episode. So I'm gonna say here that Carrie is gonna get sent home at this point, which leads us right up to the grand finale with almost the same cast of queens, except instead of Diabetti, we have Denali. Now, the final episode is obviously the lip sync SmackDown for the crown, but before we get to that, we have to bring back one eliminated queen. And here, we're just gonna follow what production actually did this episode and bring Carrie back. The big twist of the episode, though, was the use of Rada Queen to determine the lip sync order and the seating. But, like, let's be so for real. Does anyone actually believe that Ginger was ranked first overall and someone like Aja was ranked 6th? Like, oof. But anyway, I'm just gonna reseed the final lip sync based on where I thought the queens would actually fall. So the ranking is here, which means our first lip sync would be between Georges versus Irene, and then Lydia versus Ginger, followed by Denali versus Bosco, and then Aja versus Carrie. Of these, I think Georges, Ginger, Aja, and Denali would win their lip syncs and advance to the next round. And in a Georges versus Ginger semifinal lip sync, I think Georges is going to take it, and I think she's going to move on to the finals. Whereas in an Aja versus Denali semifinal lip sync, I see Aja taking it, which means our top 2 of the season would actually be Georges versus Aja, lip syncing to It's Raining Men by the Weather Girls. And honestly, at this point, I think Rue would crown Georges. I think Georges absolutely killed that final lip sync in the original episode, even though we didn't get to see a whole lot of it with some of the editing. But I think Rue would take her opportunity here to crown Georges as the winner of All Stars 10. So thank you guys for watching this video. Comment down below if you disagree with any of my takes. But otherwise, I will see you next time. Bye!